Versatility, one of the most important traits for a successful modern firearm to have. The ability to be adaptable to a multitude of scenarios is paramount. This, of course, applies to optics as well. And there's one optic that's a simple, yet versatile package that's shown up in a number of games. That optic, of course, is the Elcan Specter. Optics on firearms have existed for a long time. Dating back to the early 17th century, the ability to mount an optical device on a firearm has been an important technological advancement. From high magnification scopes on long-range rifles to red dots meant for close ranges, a well-made optic makes any firearm easier to shoot. A large number of optics have fixed magnification. That is, their magnification is locked to a specific amount. This is usually a result of the inherent design of optics, but also lends itself to one important characteristic: simplicity. An optic with fixed magnification will look the same every time. It's one less variable to account for when making a shot. The obvious downside to this is that not every magnification level is suited for every scenario. A high 12 times magnification isn't the best choice for clearing a small building, and it's hard to make long shots with low or no magnification. One clear solution to this problem is to design an optic that can switch between different magnification levels. Currently, there are many optics capable of doing this, but the idea of a variable magnification optic dates back to as early as the 1930s. While many of these early variable magnification optics were certainly capable of producing a clear image, they simply were not robust enough to handle use in combat. So, these earlier variable magnification optics did not generally see military use. About 70 years later, optics had advanced exponentially. From red dots that made for quick target acquisition to virtually indestructible prism sights, there were a seemingly limitless amount of choices, at least for fixed magnification optics. When it came to variable magnification optics, choices were still limited. Other than expensive and bulky rifle scopes, there weren't many options. Throughout the 20th century, firearms generally had specific roles. For example, compact submachine guns were limited to close quarters combat, while bolt-action rifles were generally used at longer ranges. However, with the introduction of the assault rifle, that is, a rifle firing an intermediate cartridge capable of semi or fully automatic fire, the lines between firearm roles began to blur. And with the development of shorter carbine variants of these rifles, it became clear that firearms of the future would be versatile weapons that could fulfill multiple roles. So, with assault rifles being used in different scenarios, there was a growing interest in adopting optics that could be just as adaptable. While it was possible to switch optics, the process was time-consuming and typically required tools. By the early 21st century, it was clear that an optic that could quickly switch magnification levels was needed. It's important to note that variable magnification optics did exist at this time, but were generally limited to rifle scopes. While they certainly did function, rifle scopes have their problems. They're bulky, heavy, and can be somewhat delicate. For a precision long-range rifle, these aren't significant drawbacks, hence why sniper rifles still predominantly have rifle scopes on them. But for a standard infantry rifle, rifle scopes are too heavy, delicate, and complicated to be a viable option. In 2003, the search for a new variable optic fell upon the US Naval Surface Warfare Center. Specifically, they were looking for an optic that would provide both long and short-range capability for a soldier. The company that ended up taking the lead was Raytheon Elcan, a Canadian optic company that was best known for producing the C-79 optic. They were well established and in a good position to take on the challenge. Traditional rifle scopes use a series of lenses to reflect an image back to the shooter's eye. In scopes that have variable magnification, some of these lenses are adjustable, allowing for the fine-tuning of magnification level. However, the complexity of a rifle scope's internals means that they can be somewhat fragile and are typically relatively large. In contrast, prism optics use a single prism to project the sight picture. This means that prism optics are much more robust than traditional scopes and are usually also smaller and lighter. They also typically have a greater field of view compared to rifle scopes. However, there is one drawback to prism optics. Their magnification level is fixed. Due to the use of a single prism, there is no way for a prism optic to adjust magnification on its own. To satisfy NSWC's request, the optic needed to be robust. The engineers at Elcan wanted a prism optic for this reason, but the optic needed to have variable magnification as well. After all, that was the entire point of the project. Elcan came up with a novel yet simple solution. Used two different prisms, with one having no magnification and the other set to 4 times magnification. The optic could switch between prisms depending on the desired magnification level. So, instead of being a true variable magnification optic, Elcan's solution was to package 2 optics in one. Using this method, they were able to incorporate the durability of a prism optic while offering variable magnification in a small package. And so, the Elcan Specter was born. SOCOM was impressed, and as a result, Elcan was awarded the contract for SOCOM's optic. Almost immediately, feedback was positive. The Spectre brought a lot of advantages to the table. Being able to bring one optic that could change magnification instead of bringing 2 different optics on an operation saved a lot of weight. And with no variable adjustment between magnification levels, the Spectre was very simple to use. Pulling a lever is much simpler than having to memorize points on a throw lever. Due to its simplicity and durability, the Elcan Specter has been used by militaries all over the world. What began as a project for US Special Operations has turned into an optic issued to a number of countries worldwide. However, over time, users began noticing some problems with the Spectre. The Spectre came with a quick detach mount, allowing a user to quickly remove and attach the optic. While it certainly served that function, some users noted that the mount would wear down after being repeatedly detached and attached, and would begin to have trouble holding zero. This certainly isn't a universal problem, but has been more reported among owners of older generation Spectres. Others still complained about the incredibly short eye relief, meaning that a shooter would need to mount the rifle at a very specific point each time in order to maintain a clear sight picture through the optic. The Elcan Spectre's reticle also has a number of markings to assist a shooter in finding their holes for longer shots. And while it's certainly useful for making those longer shots, some find the reticle too cluttered when using the Spectre on 1 times magnification up close. None of these are deal breakers on their own, but they did serve as a reminder that the optic wasn't perfect. Eventually, the Elcan Specter made it to the civilian market as well. And while it's generally liked, there are those who complain about the aforementioned gripes with zero, eye relief, and the reticle. There is one other significant disadvantage to the Spectre on the civilian market. It's incredibly expensive. They generally retail for about twice the price of a Triticon ACOG, a similar optic that's also highly regarded as a durable prism sight. The extremely high cost makes the optic unattainable for most people, and even for those who can afford it, the Spectre usually ends up being sold for different optics. In the civilian world, having an optic that's a compromise of 1x and 4x magnification isn't a priority, so it makes sense that other optics are more popular in that market. Nevertheless, the optic remains popular worldwide, so of course, the Elcan Specter has appeared in many different games. The Elcan Specter has shown up in many different games, but while most games get the general look and feel of the optic right, almost none depict how the Spectre functions in the real world correctly. The Spectre switches between the different magnification prisms using something akin to a turntable. So when looking through the optic, the lens will slide from side to side when switching magnification. Video games have depicted many optics in fairly accurate detail, but despite this, almost none have depicted the Spectre's variable magnification correctly. Almost no game depicts the side-to-side movement of the prism in the Spectre. They'll show the magnification switch instantly, zoom in the entire screen, or only have it locked to 4x magnification. There are a small number of games that depict the Elcan Specter properly, but they're few and far between. It's no surprise that these are hardcore indie games, where these details will be appreciated by the more attentive audience. One hypothesis that could explain the Spectre's inaccuracy in games is the cost of the optic. Even compared to other premium sites, the Elcan Specter is incredibly expensive. For many game developer teams, this makes access to the optic cost prohibitive. This isn't usually a problem with other optics, as many game devs simply buy cheaper replicas to serve as a point of reference. But while less expensive clones of other optics can generally replicate the look and feel of the real thing, many clones of the Elcan Specter do not even come close to the real deal. Some don't even bother replicating the magnification switch feature, while others just aren't good. And the clones that do replicate the Elcan's features to a more accurate degree are quite expensive. All this is to say that obtaining an accurate clone of the Spectre is still fairly expensive, and probably not worth it for a dev team to buy. So, when game developers are modeling the Elcan Specter based off of inferior clones, or without any reference model at all, it's no surprise that the in-game depictions are also unrealistic. On the topic of variable magnification specifically, there may be another reason why games do not typically depict the Elcan Specter in a realistic manner. Game balance. When other optic setups with variable magnification are depicted in games, the animation to switch between magnification levels is usually relatively fast. The sight picture itself also stays relatively unobstructed during the change. Whether it's a red dot magnifier or LPVO, it's a quick change, and you don't lose sight of your target for long. But with the Spectre, there is a moment where the target is obstructed when switching magnification. It's brief, but in a competitive multiplayer game, those fractions of a second can be the difference between life and death. It may be for that reason that the Elcan's magnification switch is depicted instantly in some games. It's unrealistic, but if it makes for a better balanced game, it's probably worth it. Technology rarely advances in a vacuum. When innovation strikes, it spreads. If not for the creation of the assault rifle, it may be that the Elcan Specter would not exist today. But due to the advances of firearm technology, it does. In modern day, there appears to be a shift towards the low-power variable optic, or combinations of different optics for a variable magnification solution. But few match the durability of the Elcan Specter, and when it comes to combat, there is no trait more valuable. If you need variable magnification and need an optic that can survive the harshest conditions, the Elcan Specter is the choice. You'll just need to pay for it. And when something is that expensive, it becomes exclusive to those who can afford it. For many game development teams, buying an expensive optic just isn't a priority. But as more gamers demand realism in shooters, more of these games have committed to depicting guns and gear accurately. Perhaps in the future, we'll have a mainstream shooter that can depict the Elcan Specter in a realistic manner. Thank you for watching. For those of you unaware, I've made a new channel where I talk about my personal experiences with airsoft, guns, and gear. If that interests you, check out my first video here.